And when we talk about the differences between economic reforms, uh, this is mostly a textbook-oriented question, right? The differences between economic reforms between 1980s and 1990s. See, what we all uh, know and try. The general perception is that India went for a big bang reforms in 1991, after which the growth of India has increased manifold. Like we started experiencing extraordinary growth rates till 2008, when we had the financial crisis, right? And then after 2010, the growth picked up again, right? So the entire what you say, the credit for this growth is given to the reforms of 1991. But there are many economists who actually counter this argument, right? One of them is Arvind Subramanian, right? I hope you all know who is Arvind Subramanian. He countered this very argument in one of his papers and said, it is not 1991 reform that has actually kick-started the growth process of India, but there were reforms that were taken up in 1980 itself, right? That actually kickstarted the growth in India, right? So when these economists try to analyze the growth pattern, the growth trends in India, the first 30 decades after independence, of course, till 1980s, till 1950, from 1950 to 1980s, they called it the Hindu rate of growth, right? It was around 3.5 to 3.7% in those 3 decades on an average, right? But in 1980s, right, the growth almost doubled. It was around 1.7% in 1950. It went to around 3.8%, and it increased to a great extent in this period of time. So between 1980 to 2000 itself, we have a growth rate of nearly 4% when we talk about GDP per capita, right? So what is the difference between these two? Is that when uh, in till 1918 we had something called as license quota and permitters, the people who wanted to start business or expand the business. There are restrictions on getting licenses. It was pretty tough to get licenses at this point of time, and there were quotas that were mandated by the government, that if you want to establish this business, only this much is what this industry, a private sector can produce, right? This quantity is what the private sector can produce, and there are a lot of issues with getting permissions to involve in production, right? So this acted as hindrance till 1980s, right? And from in the 1980s, right, what the government has done is they have relaxed a lot of these restrictions that were existing till 1980, right? This license quota permit Rajka restrictions, they have relaxed. That's why the reforms of these 1980s are called as pro-business reforms, right? Uh, these reforms actually mainly what they did is like uh, they were to encourage the already existing businesses, right? We had business establishments that are not working to their efficient level. So these whatever reforms that were taken up in 1980s, they were mostly pro business reform, that was to encourage the existing business, right? And so what Arvind Subramanian says is, there was a kind of a shift of attitude, from the part of government in the 1980s, in favor of the private businesses. The government decided that, we have to somehow encourage the private business. So they relaxed a lot of restrictions on licenses, permits, and quotas, right? Because of which the private business thrived in 1980s, and the growth process, the GDP per capita growth process, received a huge boost in this point of time, right? Uh, but what happened in the 1991? is the government introduced something called as the pro-market reforms. So the 1980s reforms was called as pro-business reforms, right? Where the existing businesses, the obstacles for whatever existing businesses, were sought to be removed. But in 1991, what we had is something called as the pro-market reforms, right? So these reforms, what they did is they made it easy for new players to enter the market, right? To produce, to involve in the process of production, right? So this pro-market, this thing, it favored new entrants to enter into the market, where the pro-business orientation of 1980s was, to increase the profitability of already established industries, right, or commercial industries in in the economy, right? So what did this pro-business strategy include? It relaxed, right, the restrictions on capacity exemption for existing firms. Whatever firms were there were restrictions on even expanding their production capacity, right? So that has been relaxed, and there were price controls on these business entities, that you can't simply increase price of how much ever you want. So there was price control. There were huge corporate taxes that was cut down. It was reduced to a significant extent, right? So all these actually what helped in the business or the growth, the GDP growth to boom in 1980s, right? And in 1990s, we started allowing new players into the market, which led to again growth, because when you have new players in the market, what you are doing is you are literally allowing competition, right? When you are allowing competition, right, when you have good competition, the firms try to produce more and more efficiently. They try to produce more and more efficiently, and they were whatever this license, quota, permit, Rajka restrictions, all of them have been abolished, right? The government started allowing FDI to a great extent into India. There were a lot of private companies from abroad that came to India and established themselves, because of which so basically these pro-market reforms actually continued whatever growth that was kick-started by the 1980s reforms, right? So that is how you have to construct your answer, right? Both of these periods actually, it's not like 1980s experienced that a big growth that the 1990s and 2000s experienced, but it in a way kickstarted this entire growth, the boom process for Indian economy, right? So that is how you are supposed to handle this question, right? If you have any questions, I'll take it up. Otherwise, I'll continue. Whatever I've discussed so far are more of things that discusses the concept and can be supported with data. It's not like you have to give data on every question possible, right? And one thing I've seen is somebody is trying to follow the same answer pattern for every question, right? Introduction, body, conclusion, introduction, body, conclusion, right? Or just write whatever data I have, right? That's not definitely a way of answering the question. Some questions demand data, some questions do not demand data at all, right? Some questions demand only examples, like the question of economic growth, necessary and sufficient condition. It does not require data, right? It requires examples, right? India has had exceptionally good growth rates between 2004 and 2014, right? And but still, we were lacking on Human Development Index, multi-dimension poverty index, and so on. So this kind of examples you can give. You don't have to give data all the time, right? Because I've seen most some of you who have answered just giving data. It's not necessary that you give so much of data, right? Try to answer for whatever the question is asking. When you read the question, please read through the terms, right? What is being asked and answer to that question, right? If you give data, it is well and fine. If you, it's not, but don't write only data to a question, right?